Did I say Tim? I meant Greg. Okay. Oh, good. And we've got Gloria. So maybe Steph, if you're able to update Ron's name there. Okay, let's get started. So welcome everybody to Friday, February 9th, 2024, Bowen Island Municipalities Housing Advisory Committee meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and we have the agenda in front of us. Does anybody have any comments or questions about the agenda?
Nope.
That's okay. And then updates. Okay. Okay, yeah, sorry, I'm just looking at all these little warnings that pop up. Okay, great. So can we, unless I hear any objections, we'll unanimously approve the agenda. Hearing none. Okay, we'll move along. Adoption of the minutes. Did anybody have any comments about the minutes from last meeting? Any changes? Okay, hearing none. We will pass unanimously if I hear no objections. Okay, so passed. The next item, is there any public comments, Steph?
No public comments.
No signed up for that. Okay. So the next item, we're moving right along, is council referrals. So this is number 4.1 variance permit application for 1104 and 1108 Foxglove Lane. I think I'm going to, or at least bring it up, recuse myself from this one. Because I was previously the architect involved with this project. I no longer am, but I was previously. So I think it's probably best if I recuse myself. So I was going to check in. I know Nigel is our vice chair, but he's also very, very new. Fritz, I was wondering, would you feel comfortable chairing this discussion or maybe assisting Nigel, just keeping the discussion moving along?
Okay, so what you're saying is Nigel goes for it, and I just flag him down when it's just totally inappropriate.
Is that all? Can I leave you as a team to chair the meeting in my absence? I'm sure Steph and Daniel can lead the way, and
We'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out. Okay, so I will log off, and then Steph, you'll text me. Is that the best way when it's finished? Okay, I will watch my phone. Thanks, everybody.
Nigel, it's all yours, man.
Okay, this is my first time. If I understand correctly, because there's a staff report, we would turn it over to Daniel to share the staff position on the issue.
Sounds good to me.
Thanks, Nigel. So yes, I have a presentation for this referral and I can just talk you through it. Share the screen. Okay, do you see my presentation okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome, thanks. So this is a referral from council of a development variance permit at 1104 and 1108 Foxglove Lane. There we go. All right. So this is located, Foxglove Lane is a small subdivision that's located on Miller Road as you leave the cove immediately below Bowen Court. And this application has been in the works for quite some time, and that we originally received the application in September of 2022. It came to council in May of 2023 and was referred at that point to the design panel and the advisory planning commission. And at the time, these were two of properties that were affected by the moratorium on the Snug Cove Sewer District. So the applicants were proposing to build a fourplex that was to be served by on-site septic. And then we're seeking to build a larger building than the zoning permitted, in part to cover the added expense of building a septic field. So that application was introduced in May. Referred out to the design panel and the advisory planning commission. And then in September of 2023, this last September, the municipality, we completed the upgrades to the sewer system and were able to provide connections again to these properties. So at that point, the applicant went away and revised their development plan. And then in January, they returned to staff, then returned to we introduced to council again a revised application that still seeks a variance, but at a lesser degree than that they had sought in their earlier application. So we're currently in the notice period. So council referred it to this committee, referred it to the advisory design panel and the advisory planning commission, and have set a final decision date at the end of February. So the zoning in this area of Foxglove Lane allows for a building to be 11 meters high or 3 stories. It allows a maximum FSR, which is floor square ratio, essentially the floor area of the building, to be a maximum of 0.85. So that's a ratio of the size of the building to the size of the lot. And in this case, these two lots combined permit 464 square meters of floor area, which is about 5,000 square feet. And the zone also has a maximum dwelling size of 140 square meters, which is about 1,500 square feet. So then at the far right of this table lists the DVP that was presented to council in May, so their original application. Looked for a reduction in the front yard setback to 2.1 meters, sought an increase in the number of stories. So the building would have been 11 meters high, but to be up to 4 stories high, and sought an additional 263 square meters of floor area, so about almost 3,000 square feet additional, so up to a 1.34 FSR, and sought to increase the maximum dwelling size up to 182 square meters. So that's what council had seen in May, and then the amended application as of this January now only seeks a variance to one regulation, which is the maximum FSR, the maximum floor area. So they are seeking an increase to be 1.022 FSR. So it's seeking around 93 square meters or 1,000 square feet additional floor area for the building. So this was what the building had looked like in that May application. So essentially 4 levels, starting with the carport and sort of entry area on the bottom, and then 3 levels of the building itself, with the top 4 sort of running side to side across the building. And then the amended application that you see before has reduced the size of that building somewhat, and has so made it 3 levels. So the bottom level being the carport and entry level, and then 2 levels of the building, and essentially 2 peaks of the roof running back to front of the building. And then this is showing just that first floor and second floor above the carport level. So would have 2 units, so the yellow unit and the red unit each on 1 level, and then the brown and the purple essentially are stacked like 2-level units at the front and back of the building. And then this was just showing the floor area of the proposed 4 units. So where it says the Grove, and then they've named each of the units. So the maple, the spruce, the oak, and the pine, showing that they're each essentially at that maximum dwelling size permitted. And then on the left is what is allowed under the zoning. So what could be built without a variance. So if they were to build the 0.85 FSR, the 464 square meters, if they wanted to build 4 units of the same size, they would each be about 116 square meters. There's a proposed condition on the variance that's offered by the applicant that occupancy of the building would be conditional on adoption of a housing agreement bylaw that would require one of the units be available as a rental unit for a 5-year term. And then one of the main concerns, or one of the, I don't know, main concerns, one of the concerns we heard through that first variance application was from residents of Bowen Court, worried about the impact on their views. So on the right is there's a hatched black line that's sort of hard to see on the screen, but this was provided by Bowen Court at that May meeting, which was their analysis of where the top floor of that building would have impacted their views, with that top floor running side to side across the building. And then this was then provided by the applicant, showing their analysis of where the revised plan would end up with that, essentially the 2-peaked roof diagram. And I'll say council at their January meeting made a motion requesting the applicant have a scale drawing from a professional, registered professional, confirming that this is in fact the impact that it would have on the views. And I know the applicant is working on that drawing. And then this area is in our official community plan in an area designated village residential, which anticipates townhouse development. And there's 2 policies that we felt were relevant to this. So it talks about municipality will consider applications for townhouses in the village residential designation, provided that the scale and character of the development can blend in with the surrounding natural environments. The impacts on adjacent properties pertaining to traffic, privacy, screening, and views can be adequately managed. And policy 167, proposed development must be consistent with the scale and diversity of a village. So that was the end, and then just looking for the Housing Advisory Committee's comments and recommendations. So I'll stop sharing and open it up for questions.
Can I open it up to the group for comments on this?
Nigel?
Allison?
Daniel, your chart, You
Yep.
said the maximum size of the unit is 140 square meters.
Yeah.
But what they're building is several hundred square meters more than that. So is the 140 the footprint?
The 140 is the maximum that any one dwelling can be.
But they're building one dwelling.
Yeah.
So there's how much? So there's four dwellings in the building in total?
Yeah.
Okay, and 4 dwellings is the same number of dwellings they could build if they built 2 separate buildings on this 2 separate lots.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, all right. I was totally confused, if you may remember at the council meeting when you said it, because okay, so now I understand that.
Yeah. And it's not
So-
super almost intuitive in that the way the zoning works, there's a maximum dwelling size in the zone of 140 square meters. But given the lot sizes and the FSR permitted, like the duplexes when they develop, couldn't develop 2 units that hit the maximum 140 square meters. So essentially it's like they could do each unit at about 115 square meters in area, or you would stagger it and you'd make 1 unit larger at the maximum and 1 smaller. But currently the 3 duplexes that are built there have all gone with 2 units of roughly the same size of smaller than the maximum allowed in the zone.
So none of the other units have had a variance that I
No.
can recall.
No.
Okay.
Leonard Martin, if they had gone with 2 separate units, would the height restriction have been lower, or would it have been the same as what's being asked here?
It would be the same as what's being asked.
But we're
Okay, so
not,
sorry.
there's no variance for height restrictions now, right? It's only
Correct.
for FSR.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Councillor Wake?
Yeah, my concern here is that the guidelines were developed, and it was a little confusing to understand the difference between building size, and there was floor area developed, and the FSR. And I was uncomfortable that they were exceeding basically the guidelines that were set out to create the neighborhood in the first place. I guess one of my questions is, usually when you're granting a variance, there's some situation where there's something that they need that wouldn't affect the rest of the neighborhood, but they want it changed, to make it work. And it seems to me here that they're just trying to make it bigger, and I'm not sure why they want to make it bigger. Or I'm not sure they've got a justified need to make it bigger and ask for the variance. And perhaps if this is going to go ahead, I think at a minimum we should consider the offer to have 1 rental unit, but require that not be for 5 years, but in perpetuity, and that there be a limitation on the rent, some kind of rent guideline control.
Okay. Fritz?
Mute.
I think
Sorry,
you're on
Fritz,
mute.
you're on mute.
Yeah, somebody just called me, so. But anyway, Danielle, can you bring that view, the views from the neighbors?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was just a bit puzzled. If you look at are in your mind the roof slopes the same? I think the ones on lot 11 is a much less steep roof slope. Now the steep slope may be nicer, but does it unnecessarily obstruct the views more? Because what I think is that these units just have flat ceilings, and these are probably trusses.
Yeah.
And it's just basically airspace. So it could be maybe reasonable to say can you see if your ridge can simply be lower? there's one thing, and maybe
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. It's more like if you look at lot 11, right? If you look at that roof
Yeah.
slope, it's less. If you put that on those units, theoretically, you come out a few feet lower. And that seems to make a difference because where the valleys are, that's all trees, and where you kind of the peaks are, you're more into closer to the views or in the views, right?
Yeah.
But this may be more something that can be asked, but then I just wonder about like how that works with the variance, because like this is square footage, right? What do you need to do? Because I know variances for square footage, at least in the municipalities where we work, it's difficult. To ask a variance for anything like setbacks, height, this is normally so and many times it says in the end of a zoning schedule what the director of planning is allowed to do. You know what I mean? And like for instance, Vancouver does that. It says from the director of planning can relax the following.
Yeah.
Normally it excludes square footage. Now, is this done? How does it work? Because if council approves it, of course, council can approve changes to zoning and changes to OCPs. But what's actually involved? Like, how is this structured?
Yeah, I mean, it's a variance to the square footage. So council can't vary through a variance permit use or density. But in this case, I think there's a discussion in my council report that essentially the variance for floor area is viewed as more, it's like size and siting of building rather than increase in density or use. So given that the number of units in the area aren't increasing and the unit number is set, that it's not an increase in density as defined in the Local Government Act, but is an increase in siting and size of the building. I know many, like not many, some municipalities like Vancouver did previously and now other local governments can delegate minor variance permits to staff. And in that case, they have to have a bylaw that defines, what is within a staff's authority to issue a minor variance. We don't have that. So they're all done by council or, obviously the Board of Variance for minor variances.
Okay.
And then I will say too, we went to the design panel on Monday evening and they flagged that same point in terms of sort of the wasted space in the ceiling, and they were sort of advising either, you'd want to open it up to let in more light and views, or you'd want to reduce the roof height to, let the views from Bowen Court be better.
Okay.
Other question?
Oh, go, Councillor Morse.
Well, did you have a question?
No,
Or
go
somebody
ahead.
else in the line? So reducing the roof height isn't going to affect the FSR though, is it?
No.
So they want the FSR because they want to build a bigger unit
Yes.
so that they can accommodate a more varied
Yeah,
occupant,
so
like
they can
smaller
increase,
families.
increase the unit sizes essentially up to the maximum permitted in the zoning, so allow a bigger building. I mean, council could say, right? Council Morse Council could say, well, we'll approve the increase in floor area, but as a condition, you can't reach 11 meters. You can only reach 10.5 meters or something, and say, as a condition of the increased building size, it needs to be a slightly shorter building. That would be, within council's authority to do.
But what I'm hearing from the neighbors is in the development rather than is not the height as much as the size.
Yeah.
Whereas Bowen Court's concerned about the height.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because there's no view in between the building all the way down, but with the two peaked roofs. So I guess what is the benefit of letting them have the bigger FSR? And I guess the benefit is there a need for the extra size of housing that they're talking about?
Yeah, and that's really what, I think the Housing Advisory Committee can provide helpful feedback on, because that's part of their rationale is essentially like, this lets us do slightly larger units. So they'll be, 1,500 square feet instead of 1,200 square feet, say, something in that range. So it lets us do, better 3-bedroom units that can be family units in this building than without the variance.
Are any of the other units family units big enough like that size? In the other
They're
building?
all, no, I think they've all built, the other duplexes all built at about 115 square meters or whatever. They did equal size ones. And then the fourplex lower down, obviously they're smaller.
So two-bedroom units
Yeah,
max.
they're 2-bedroom units.
What's the protocol for me to weigh in? Am I allowed to just speak my
Yeah.
piece while I'm chatting? Okay.
Give yourself
I-
a turn essentially in the queue. Yeah.
Okay. Where I was going was kind of what Planner Martin suggested, which is if preserving the views is important, I think that's something that should be considered for the neighbors. But I really like the idea of creating more space. This sounds and looks like missing middle housing to me. And in discussing sort of the need on Bowen with Robin Fenton, my understanding is there's a huge need for sort of your 2 and 3 bedroom homes at a more approachable price point. So I'd really love to support the ability to go a little bit bigger in the neighborhood if we're being mindful to do what we can preserving the views. I also like Councillor Wake's suggestion of making it rental housing in perpetuity as a condition. Fritz, you had your hand up a little while ago. Did you have another comment?
Yeah, I was actually more or less the same, what I realize now the last two of you are saying, but it actually is, we tend to repeat it quite often, that we also simply want a larger variety of homes of different sizes. Now these numbers are relatively large, for instance, like 115 square feet. That in my mind is already a two-bedroom unit, maybe even a 3, the 1500, you get to 3. You know what I mean? If you look at normal buildings, right? So like if you think that's a particular location, if you drive by there, it's more and more like one big block of apartments. It starts to look more like one big mass, right? If everything is done, if all the buildings are there. So from that point of view, for the public, I don't think it's going to make much difference from an experience point of view. You know what I mean? And the ones that are built that are together, they're actually quite nicely done. So I don't know. I think that our aim to have a larger variety of units and that are family friendly is kind of implemented here, you know. But you know, it sets kind of maybe it sets a little bit of a precedent that you can just go to the Muni and ask for more square footage, which is normally it's almost impossible to do it anywhere else. But I think that if Bowen does that and it has good reasons for it, I mean, why not? You know.
Ron, did you have a comment?
Yes, I think that I know we're concerned to have more rental housing on Bowen, but I think that the main purpose of having more rental housing is to have more affordable housing, and so it's kind of ironic that that the condition of having one rental unit would accompany the permission to make all the units larger, and therefore the rental unit would become more expensive. I think that sort of contradicts the aim of more affordable housing. Perhaps that problem could be addressed by having one unit a bit smaller so that the rent would not escalate beyond what we'd like to see.
Okay. Do we have any other comments? Councilor Wake?
Just following up on Ron's comment, I think it makes more sense. I mean, it's going to be challenging, I think, to make one unit smaller, and it's not necessarily going to make the rent more affordable. And so the point is well taken that making these larger is going to make them less affordable, whether they're for rent or for sale. And we're trying to keep things affordable. So that's where this is moving in a direction that I don't think is what was intended. But if the counterbalance was to actually put limitations on the rent, that would keep it affordable. And it does get into the question of, okay, how do you set that? But I think that can be resolved. But I'd just be a lot more comfortable if it was one unit is rental in perpetuity and the rent is tied to income somehow.
I'm sorry, it just says go ahead. I don't know your name. I apologize.
Can you hear me? I don't know.
I can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
It's Greg.
It's
Greg.
Greg.
Yeah, Greg Bosworth. Pleased to meet you.
You too.
You're doing a hell of a job
Oh,
sharing
thank
here.
you.
Is it my understanding that the original application was for 2 units and this increase is to create 4 units?
No, sorry.
Or am I-
The application was always for 4 units, and the 4 units are permitted in the zoning.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that clarification. And do we know, has there been any discussion with the proponent? They're suggesting a 5-year rental timeline. Do we know what their reaction or feeling or support for in perpetuity is, or is that something that's just been come up today?
When they offered that, I did sort of provide the examples of our housing agreement bylaws, that, typically I seek it to be in perpetuity. And typically that's done through a, rezoning where we're increasing the number of units. So there's that trade-off. And they essentially told me that they were comfortable with the 5-year term. Now, I don't know, like, if this comes back to council and council, is there at the table and says, well, we're comfortable approving it on this condition. Like, push comes to shove, I'm not sure.
Planner Martin, can I ask I think I understand a 5 years would mean that the developer has to own it for 5 years, after which, in theory, they could sell it. But if we switch to in perpetuity, I'm just wondering who
Yeah.
owns it? Like who owns the unit if it is in perpetuity?
I mean, I think 5-year term, it wouldn't preclude them from selling it. So as I understand, the intent of this building, like the others, would be to stratify it, to have 4 units, and then that unit could be sold, but the 5-year rental term would be in place. So it could be sold to somebody who either is looking for investment property or, is looking to retire on Bowen in the future, but is happy owning something that's rented out now.
I believe there's a lot of new sort of subsidized rental programs coming online from the province and the Fed. I feel like it would be a bit unfair to the developer to require something in perpetuity before we can present the terms that we're asking them to commit to. It's just a personal opinion on that. I really love the idea of in perpetuity. I think we need to be clear on what it is we're asking them to commit to.
Daniel?
Council.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. What did we put on 510 for the rental units?
We required that they be rental units in perpetuity, and we required that the affordable units be rented no more than the affordability rate for, I think, 25 years.
Yeah. So doing something that matched that would maybe make sense. And it doesn't have to be the bigger unit. It could be one of the smaller units.
Yeah, I mean, right, they're all the same size. Some are 1 level and some are 2 levels, but they're all like the same floor area.
So they're all going to be 3-bedroom units?
I don't have the bedroom breakdown easily, but what I have is that size breakdown, which had them all at like 139 square meters. So all the same sizes, just some of them are 1 level and some are 2.
And 139 square meters is 1,500 square feet.
Yeah, give or take. And then I'll say too, it's the applicant's still working through final building permit and development permit plans. So it's if council approves it, the variances for the increase in floor area and the rough massing would be in place, but they may change the internal configuration.
So I guess for me, then the question becomes, our housing needs assessment did say we needed more 3-bedroom family type units. This is close to the cove, close to the school. So if we were going to get 4 3-bedroom units out of this, instead of 3 4-bedroom and 1 2-bedroom, I guess,
Mhm.
Does it make sense? Are we filling a need that we need? Even if it's, how about making an affordable purchase, Tim? Rather than affordable rental? I'm thinking of their cash flow too. As a builder, they've got to recover the costs of building this thing.
Councillor Wake, you had your hand up earlier?
Yeah, so there's a number of things here. First of all, I think putting a sunset on how long it is affordable for is very short-sighted. Langford did this with their affordable purchase ownership housing plan, and they said a 25-year sunset, and then it went to market value, and somehow that sounds like relief for the owner or developer, but or purchaser, but it sort of moves in the opposite direction of what you're trying to achieve here, which is create more affordable housing. So I don't think 25 years is not a whole lot better than 5 years. We're going to need more and more of this stuff as time goes on, and if we're losing it and having to replace it as well as build for the increasing need, we're challenged. I think Councillor Morris has a good point about the 3 bedrooms, and if we could require that all 4 units were 3 bedrooms, then that would be a step towards affordability, because they would be the units would have more capacity, and therefore the rental capacity of whoever is renting them would be higher. So yeah, I'm for talking about some limitations here, and just to be clear, to Daniel's point, we're not deciding this and then they have to accept it. It's just if they want this variance, they need to accept it. So there's a pretty good pro quo.
I don't have experience sort of crafting a motion. Can I turn it over to someone in the group to make a motion?
I've got something started. It's got 3 points so far. That
Okay.
felt like they were sticky, but they may contradict each other. So, is it
Can you show us what we have so far?
sure?
Lois hasn't had any comments. Has she got anything?
Sorry, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Sorry. No, this has all been quite informative. I'm sort of listening to the back and forth. My only comment is, I don't know the translation from square meters to square feet, but I know a lot of apartments downtown, they're small and they're having families and they're 825 square feet. And people are managing with those, and I'm always reluctant when we push for bigger rather than smaller. That's all. I just think that's a trend, and it is a trend, but I don't know that it's one that we should embrace. So that's my only comment on that. Just for us to be cautious when someone's asking for greater space, because it just impacts on so many levels, which we all know, environmentally and socially and everything else. But I like the idea of 3 bedrooms because it makes it more amenable to families. But then does that mean 2 bathrooms? It just grows. That's all. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks for asking, Allison.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Can you make it a wee bit bigger?
Yes. Is that okay?
Oh, that's much better.
Okay, so support or not support the application with the recommendation that we have the note about not 5 years, but in perpetuity. And there was also a comment about rent control. I don't know if we want those to be separated, perhaps. Makes more sense. And then there was something about the rental unit being smaller. And I don't know how much support that got. And
Well,
then,
I think that was my comment, Steph. And I
okay,
was meaning, I didn't realize they were gonna all be the same size.
okay. So would you
So
like me to take that out?
I was thinking there was gonna be a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. So I was just saying that they have the option of picking which unit was gonna be the rental unit.
So goodbye to that.
And then we discussed lowering the roof height.
Okay. We
But
wanna-
Fritz, could you offer some guidance as to what would be a reasonable way to phrase what we're asking?
Well, it's basically really simple. It's just that the other units that are already built have a lesser roof, and there doesn't seem a lesser roof slope, and there doesn't seem to be any issue with that. So I think they're unnecessarily like
So,
the ridge sits too high. The ridge could easily be lower. That's kind of what it is.
so that the roof ridge be lowered to provide a slope that matches the neighboring properties?
Well, or maybe say similar to, because
Yeah,
then otherwise then you need to survey with a number. You see what I mean? And they may sit like it goes all back to the bylaws. It can get really complicated. So it's similar
Yeah.
to.
So we're looking for language, Fritz. So the roof height be lowered to be similar to the neighboring property.
but there's
Yeah,
a formula.
Dwellings
Yeah, the adjacent development.
adjacent.
Is it the height or is it the pitch?
It's,
Well, it's the pitch, but the pitch creates the height. So it's kind of the same thing, right? So if you say if the
Yeah.
ridge goes lower, then automatically those two
yeah,
things.
so change height to ridge, Steph.
Ridge or pitch?
Yeah,
No,
ridge.
ridge. If the ridge is lower, then they end up doing a lesser slope.
Yeah.
But then that first point, I thought it should be structured a bit differently. Like it's first that as there is not a hardship factor
All right,
motivating.
Fritz, can we just finish this point? Is this
I
exactly?
thought you were done.
That's done, okay.
I thought so. Let me see now. That the roof ridge be lower to be similar to the. Yeah, you have to say why. To not
Okay, yeah, so why?
unnecessarily reduce or affect the view of the neighbors above. Or
Okay,
yeah,
thank
something
you.
like that.
Okay, up to the top.
Yeah, I thought that the first one, because that there's no hardship motivating request for increased FSR, is more a statement by itself, and then therefore you can you feel the committee feels that it's justified that there's one rental unit in perpetuity, but it also relates to all the other things because
Kind
there
of a
is
whereas, isn't it? Like a,
yeah.
okay.
It's a whereas, and all the other things kind of fall into place.
Okay, just move this around a bit. Thank you. Where
Yeah, okay.
there is not a hardship factor would have been request for increased.
That is, you need a,
I think that then the one unit becomes the first bullet.
yeah, that's
Okay.
a bullet.
Yeah. Because the other things tie to it as
Yeah.
well, because there's no hardship. So we get everything. 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4.
Do you want to say therefore be it resolved or therefore the committee recommends?
Therefore be it resolved that the Housing Advisory Committee recommends.
Okay, all right.
And it's a floor space ratio, no N.
Okay, sorry.
Just okay, just let her get the
You get this
the
much for.
redundant.
It's your round. Okay, so that Housing Advisory Committee recommend that one of, can I say one of the 4 units? So it's a standalone resolution.
Yep.
4 units be offered for rental.
You can say secure too,
Secured, not offered, secured.
Yeah.
Good, thank you, secured. For
Not for 5 years, but.
rental common, not for the offered or not for the proposed 5 years, but is it
In perpetuity,
or
yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
In or for perpetuity?
In.
And
In,
Yeah.
okay.
can I ask, how do you manage that, the in perpetuity, if the building gets sold? Is that a condition of the sale?
It becomes a covenant. It's a covenant on title.
Yeah.
So it transfers with the land or with the unit.
No, but like say if the house, if the building would be demolished, right? Then you can't. A person should be able to demolish it when the building would need to be demolished, right?
okay, Steph, the rental, the one rental unit, I think that bit about rent control, it's affordable housing agreement, right? Is what we want. And
Daniel,
it goes with the up above paragraph. I mean, we don't know, maybe they're gonna rent all for you. But I doubt it.
Okay, so that just not one rental unit, but just that rental.
It goes with the up above paragraph. One
I
of the
guess
four
is
units be
this saying-
secured for rental, not for the proposed 5 years, but in perpetuity and be subject to an affordable housing agreement.
Is that seeking like a reduced rate, like rental rate?
Isn't that what an affordable housing agreement means?
Well, it doesn't have to, like it's a housing agreement, but it could just be to specify tenure and say it has to be rental.
But I've
Or,
said affordable.
yeah, so I guess that's what I'm,
To me, the
Let's
affordable
say
housing
both.
agreement means
Why don't we
reduced
just say-
rent.
Yeah.
Let's say both, including
Yeah.
as much information as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Daniel, could we use language here like I think you used just a few moments ago to have it on the same basis as what you've got, for example, for the units at the pub. They have rent controls or rent limitations, do they not?
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I said affordable housing agreement.
Is there something?
Well, we could say subject to an affordable agreement at a reduced rental, then say instead of a reduced rental rate, e.g. as with the pub or something.
How about if we say an affordable housing agreement that provides for an affordable rent?
Or non-market rent or something?
Non-market rent, that's the
Yeah,
term.
that's better. Yeah,
Rental rate.
rental rate. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. That's great.
Daniel, do we know what kind of units they're planning on building?
What kind of,
Well, are they planning on building all 3-bedroom units right now, or do you know?
I believe so. Like I said, I think it's in their plans. I'm trying to find the breakdown. Bedroom.
That they've already got four
Bedroom.
bedroom units, then you could say the committee supports all 4 units having 3 bedrooms to provide family housing. Or where we
Am I waiting for Daniel? Can I carry on with these bullets?
well, this last bullet's fine. We've already massaged that one. It was just the wording.
So I'm wondering if in the second line, recommend that, if starting at that should be a bullet point below like the others.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Councilor Morse, I'm just looking at their plans and I'm not sure if one of the layouts has 4 bedrooms, I believe.
Ah, okay.
Oh, you have to say minimum 3 bedrooms.
Minimum of 3 bedrooms would be good. Because 4 is even better.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing if one has 4, then one probably might have 2.
No.
They're all the same size.
Now keep it simple, okay?
Oh, The KISS principle, okay.
I'm gonna get this up here.
Is it recommends, plural?
No, it's a subjunctive.
Okay.
Therefore, be it resolved that the committee recommend.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't ask me what subjunctive means. I
Yeah,
hate it.
you don't need to know. That's what I do. You do the math.
Okay, I think that looks good. If Robin were here, she'd be moving us along.
Okay.
Oh, well, we didn't
Can
really
I-
talk out loud about the third one, so,
Can I suggest a couple tiny changes? In the third bullet, I think it should be roof ridges because there actually are a couple of them.
Okay,
And then the word unnecessarily, the word to following it
thank
should
you.
be deleted.
yeah. And then if any English majors want to come up with something better than to be similar to,
Similar to, you don't need the to be.
okay, I like to line with, but, or reflect, oh,
I think similar is fine stuff because we're not saying match. That would be the other word I would use, but we're not.
Okay.
We're just saying
We
that
don't
it's
want
the
that,
close.
okay.
Yeah.
okay, and then have we said support or not support? We don't need that now, there's no hardship factor. But like we did have supports, not support in the submittal.
Yeah, I guess I was going to ask if the committee wanted, like, the committee can just provide, you know, you're providing recommendations on sort of conditions of the variance, but does the committee want to say overall you support the variance or not?
Well, I guess we do.
So we can say if the variance is supported.
No, I think
Okay.
Steph, it's more, it's like,
Yeah.
and, you know, so at the bottom, when it's like, and that the Housing Advisory Committee supports DVP,
Okay.
blah, 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 you know,
Or
based on
does
these
it-
conditions or something.
Yeah, or up on the top, it said the Housing Advisory Committee supports the variance provided
Yeah.
that,
That makes up our whereas.
yeah.
Okay, what about
So
we
maybe-
say here and whereas the committee recommends the application in principle?
No,
Okay.
No,
I think
no,
it's just,
Or
wouldn't it
sorry,
be therefore be it resolved that the Housing Advisory Committee supports DVP with the following recommended conditions or something.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, there we go. Perfect.
Yeah, I think recommended conditions is better than recommendations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, don't we only support it with those as conditions with the?
That's
following
why we
conditions?
said with the following recommended
Look, we read your
conditions.
mind, Gloria. We read your mind. There you go.
I'm mindful that we have some other agenda items that we gotta cover
Yeah.
today.
Okay,
And,
let's read it out, Lois, or,
Do we
can I
have
ask
to
someone
read it
make a
out?
motion? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh. Hold on, let's get rid of this one at the bottom. Maybe not, we're like, Daniel and I come off the accessibility committee, so.
Okay, so I'll read it out then. Whereas there is no hardship factor motivating the request for increased floor space ratio by development permit application DVP 2022-0282, 1104 and 1108 Foxglove Lane. Therefore, be it resolved that the Housing Advisory Committee support the application with the following recommended conditions. That one of the 4 units in the application be secured for rental only, not for the proposed 5 years, but in perpetuity, and that it be subject to an affordable housing agreement that provides for non-market rental rate, and that to provide family housing, all 4 units be required to have a minimum of 3 bedrooms, and that the roof ridges be lowered similar to the adjacent dwellings to not unnecessarily affect the view of the neighbors above. I read it out, but being the council member, I think it would be better if one of the committee members moved it.
Yeah, I moved that, sure.
we have a second?
Can we just take out a comma, please?
Absolutely.
Not for the proposed 5 years, eliminate that comma, but in perpetuity.
Love it.
Okay.
So there was any more discussion before the final vote?
Well, without that comma, I'll second it.
It's already seconded.
I like that.
Okay.
That was a friendly
Um,
amendment, Greg.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Is that unanimous?
Job,
Okay,
folks.
Am I supposed to say something there?
Just say good for you guys, and then
Oh, good for you guys.
Some-
Moving
somebody's
on.
gonna text
Carried
Robin.
unanimously.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, thanks. Oh yeah, this is Robin, and oh, she's like, what's oh
So why don't we move on to 5.1, which is
well, she'll be here.
Nigel,
Sure.
while we get Robin back in.
Yeah, so I met with Planner Martin yesterday about this actually, and just to sort of make a long story short, even though we may have the will as a municipality to fast track a pilot, we don't appear to have the authority without an OCP amendment process that would take approximately a year. So unless there've been any new developments since I met with Planner Martin yesterday on this, I think today's discussion would be best focused on, do we want to focus on an OCP amendment for a pilot versus an OCP amendment to just broadly allow Bowen to create cluster housing, and then in parallel look at the municipality creating more granular rules and bylaws. Planner Martin, did you have anything to add before we open it up to the group?
No, I think, yeah, Nigel and myself spent an hour yesterday talking in circles about what's the best way to move this forward, and essentially debating, pilot project where we do the EOI for proponents and do like targeted OCP amendment for those applications, create OCP land use designation that would be like cluster housing zone or something, that we would say, okay, these are the four, 4 pilot projects or 1 pilot project or whatever the number is, and do an OCP amendment to permit it on that site and rezoning to follow or concurrently. Versus instead doing, well, what we want to do actually is create, cluster housing policies in the OCP that say, in the rural land use designation, you can apply to rezone to be a cluster housing zone, and these are guidelines you would follow, and essentially set out the formula so that people then would then apply to rezone to say, okay, I'm in the rural designation and I want to be a cluster housing project. This is my process to do that. Yeah, and sort of struggling with, okay, how did the timelines work? Like Nigel and Robin had done great work putting together a timeline, and then I was looking at it going, I don't know how I could do this. Like, what's the fastest way to do a pilot project? And it's like, well, it's an OCP amendment for this property or these 4 properties. That's maybe helpful because it's like then council and the public and everyone can see, okay, we're seeing this on actual concrete on the ground. This is how it worked on these sites, and work through it. But at the end of the day, if that's approved, it's like it doesn't actually necessarily speed up for the next person who wants to do it, because then we're saying, okay, now you can apply to be in this OCP land use designation, and you'll do an OCP amendment and we'll do the whole thing all over again. Versus, is it better to say, well, what we want to do is create the structure for it in the OCP that essentially has the guidelines, and then people then would be applying to rezone to allow it under the new rezoning regulations, where it's like there's not a public hearing process. It's like you comply with the OCP, you comply with the guidelines that have been set out, and you can have sort of a faster, more efficient rezoning process. Is that roughly where we landed, Nigel?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And having slept on it, I mean, I think for all of the time and energy and resources that would go into doing this, it would just make more sense to update the OCP so that, like, not for a pilot, but just for the ability of the municipality to approve these as applications come forward. I think in parallel, there's going to be sort of the notion, we've talked a lot about sort of Bowen first housing policies, so that we're helping our community members and not attracting people from other communities because we have better housing policy here. So I think a lot of that work is probably going to occur over the next year anyways. I'd really like to see an OCP amendment occur that just enables Bowen to do this as the need arises and as we feel it fits with our or aligns with our community first policies.
Nigel, are you seeing Robin's hand, digital hand?
Yes. Sorry.
Hi, everybody. Sounds like you're doing a good job,
No.
Nigel. So that's why I'm quite happy to sit back. Daniel, is there an update on, I believe council has said that they are going to be doing an OCP review at some time. Is there a timeline associated with that yet?
So we have the status we're at. Council has approved the terms of reference of an OCP steering committee, and there is an ad
Working on the ad.
that's going out seeking members. If anybody wants to be on more committees, we are seeking OCP steering committee members. So there's not, yeah. So then the steering committee part of their initial job is developing the work plan for the actual OCP update process.
Okay. So, but I think just to summarize, I think to repeat everything everybody said, it makes sense. That's literally getting started, that we take this cluster housing concept and hopefully weave that into the OCP review process and see where that'll fit into a new OCP. I don't think there's any point doubling up on workload and, like you say, doing all this work for a pilot project. And that wasn't ever the intention, right? Like that wasn't the plan. So, or certainly it wasn't my intention when we sort of started this project. So that's what I'd be in favor of. And so if this committee can, you know, keep maybe doing some of our work, that can then go to the committee that's doing the OCP to kind of make some recommendations when the time comes, that I can see that as being something helpful this committee could do. But yeah, it does sound like it's not going to be as quick a timeline as maybe we'd hoped. It'll stretch out a little longer. So yeah, I'm okay with that. Anybody else? Nigel, you can keep chairing if you'd like.
No, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
You're happy with me? Okay, so Tim, and then I think Allison, I wasn't sure if you can be next, but Tim, go ahead.
So I think in the recommendation, if we can include the language that Daniel mentioned about the rezonings being, I forget your language, Daniel, but so they wouldn't require public hearings, so they could be fast tracked.
Yeah, so I mean, that's just the new provincial legislation that was adopted, is that now if a rezoning application is consistent with an official community plan and it's a residential rezoning or it's mixed use and over half the floor area is residential, local governments are prohibited from holding public hearings.
Okay. Yeah. So we don't need to put that in. It's happening.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay,
yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, and Allison, so I wasn't sure if you had your hand up or not.
Yeah, my question has to do with Daniel has a report to council on our agenda on the provincial legislation, and we've got to update our housing needs report, and we've got to update the OCP by December 2025 to reflect our housing needs report. And then the zoning bylaws have to align with the OCP. So would this cluster housing, with these needs for, you know, Bowen residents and people that are, you know, working on Bowen and want to live here too, how does that reflect in, are we going to have to amend the zoning bylaw, the law as well, to match the OCP? And would these cluster zonings be something that the housing needs report picks up?
I mean, so the housing needs report, like the province hasn't yet put out their guidelines of how, what the methodology is. I've spoken with some consultants already, essentially trying to get like early in their queue because every local government is going to have to do the same report. So trying to say like, do ours first, please, because then we need it for the OCP review. And I'm unclear at this point, like if a 20-year, it has to show a 20-year projection of housing need, and then you have to show the OCP has that amount. So I'm unclear, like when that's done, like, will it mean that, you know, the number of units currently permitted in our OCP has to increase or not? I'm not sure. And so I would know more at that point. But I think how I would picture the cluster housing working is like in our rural, like right now our OCP has a section on rural and rural 1.
Yeah.
designations, and it has policies about it, and it has minimum lot size and stuff. And then maybe what would happen is, there would be a section in there that says cluster housing, and it would say, if you want to, applicants who want to develop, cluster housing according to these principles would have to meet these points. And, maybe that's some of what like the housing committee has worked on, where it says it's like, number of units and size, and, it has septic and water and whatever else. And then people would apply to rezone, and part of the rezoning analysis would be, did you meet these criteria? But I don't think then that wouldn't mean that they would be pre-zoned, because it wouldn't be required that the rural lots be rezoned to match that, to follow the provincial legislation.
No, but I guess in your report, it says that we have to have a housing needs report.
Yeah.
And if a housing needs report says we need XYZ units, and there's no room in the code for those XYZ units, then you're into the rural designations. And then it goes on to say you've got to align your zoning bylaws with the OCP, where it's providing the housing under the housing needs report. So I guess I'm just throwing it out as an idea that we need to keep track of, because if fast tracking so that the housing gets built is one of the key things. So people don't have to go through the huge, long process.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's like if the housing needs report comes back and says Bowen really needs, smaller housing. We need like 3-bedroom housing that are more affordable than anything
The
that's on the
missing
market
middle,
now, right? Yeah, which, I think this committee could easily see being a result of that. Then, and we need whatever it is, 40 of those. Then it's possible that what the OCP could do is say, okay, we're going to designate actually cluster housing sites in the OCP and pre-zone them. And maybe that would be the process of, calling for pilot projects. Or it could be, actually, these are the most appropriate ones, so we're going to designate them, and the people may or may not wish to develop that way.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for the discussion, everybody. We are over time, and I think we probably want to wrap up at 11. So let's keep moving unless there's anything burning to talk. I'm sure this will come up again. This is definitely not a completely finished issue. Steph, go ahead.
Do we have any kind of a vote of any kind on this? I had something prepared about the approving the work plan and timeline, which has been thrown.
No, I would say there really isn't anything at this stage. Unless we all want it documented. I mean, it's documented in this meeting. It'll be in the minutes. We can just say, that essentially we'll continue to work on it in conjunction with the OCP review and make recommendations. Is that a fair thing, everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. So nothing formal, nothing actioned now, but we'll keep working in conjunction with the OCP review committee and contribute what we can to that.
So no specific actions are coming out of this then, okay.
No, I don't think at this stage. No, once the committee's formed and the OCP is happening and there's, things moving, then maybe we can make some formal things. Okay, so let's keep going. We have staff updates and then council and committee updates. So 6.1 staff updates. Daniel, anything or Steph?
I guess update is that I have that report going to council on Monday that outlines provincial legislation changes. One being the housing needs report update that I'll look to do as soon as we have guidelines for it. And I think unlike our current housing needs report, the goal of that will be like essentially it's like an interim housing needs report, which is what is permitted in the legislation, just trying to get the numbers out and not do, like, I know when we did the housing needs report, we did some consultation steps. I think my goal is not to do that, to do essentially that background data work, and then knowing that the OCP part of that discussion will be like lots of consultation on housing pieces. So it felt a little redundant to do it for a housing needs report and then do it again for OCP. And I'd rather this one just be like the projections following provincial guidelines. And then, through the OCP process, I'm sure housing will be a conversation piece. Yeah, I think that's my only update. I guess I would say I don't have an update on the Housing Accelerator Fund at this time, but we're still monitoring.
I think there was a public article or something that did come out, but it doesn't sound like there's anything official. So we will wait and see. Okay, council and committee updates. We've got Councillor Wade, Councillor Morris, anything on your side?
The report on the Crown Land is on the agenda for
right.
Monday night. And we got some money from the province for housing initiatives. That's a letter that's on the agenda for Monday night. And I thought there was something else, but I'm just looking. Guess not. Okay. I think that's it.
Or what was, I'll have a look, obviously, at the agenda. I haven't seen it yet. What's the funding that was received for housing? Is it a particular?
It's not necessarily for housing. It's funding that's going to help us do all the things we have to do for all these bills. Just a minute, let me get it here.
Or Daniel, do you remember off the top of your
Yeah,
head?
it was the 51 million capacity building fund that the province announced a while back. Oh, I got the letter right here.
I believe, Bowen, it's 168,000, and it's specifically
$168,153 by the end of January. Have we got it yet, Daniel?
I haven't heard from Kristen.
Yeah. And
Okay.
it says the funding is intended to support activities or projects local governments must undertake to meet the new legislative requirements, updates to existing zoning, parking, OCPs, development cost charges, and this new updating the housing needs report, and then this new amenity cost charge bylaw. And so that'll help us, pay for, and I think it'll free up some of the stuff we were going to do with maybe the HAC funding. So we can use this money instead of the HAC funding, which would give us more money for,
Something I'll just flag too about the provincial legislation, something that's come up through all of these sessions is essentially local governments asking the province what happens to, essentially like inclusionary zoning or like affordable housing as an amenity in a rezoning. So many communities, and Bowen included, typically seek, affordable housing contributions as an amenity of a rezoning. And how does that work if instead we are pre-zoning everything to the OCP level densities? And so the province has said, well, one option is you can density bonus for affordable housing. And they've said, there may be more legislation coming in the spring that addresses that concern. Yes, so something we'll continue to monitor, but it'll be something to consider when it comes time to, like, if we adopt the new OCP, it has land use designations. We have to do the zoning to match. It's like, what does that look like? Especially with sort of park and housing amenity contributions. So.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Because I think that's the article I'd seen. I'd seen that number and I mixed it up with the Housing Accelerator Fund. So that's good to know. That it's nice to know that the province is making a bunch of legislation and then following it up with funds, right? Like that's hopefully those funds can cover what they're asking for, but at least there's something. So I think that's great to see. Okay, let's move right along. New business. Hopefully this can be, we still got 20 minutes. Okay. I actually don't think I need 10 minutes for this. I just came across this, and it has rent bank, the BC rent bank. This is something that actually had come up a while back in our committee, but had certainly, I think, dropped off most of our radar. I just wanted to bring it to everybody's awareness. I'm not quite sure how we follow up. I'm not sure if it's something Birch can follow up on, but I also just wanted to put it out there publicly. That the BC Rent Bank exists. I believe the province has put some new funding or is continuing to fund it. So the rent bank is essentially to help people stay in their homes. So if they're at risk of being evicted, so the ramifications of being evicted and potentially becoming homeless or having to find another place, whereas a small injection of funds from a rent bank to just say cover a month's rent to kind of keep you going is a much better way to keep people in secure housing. Right. And to keep them there. So it's a wonderful program, I think. But the reason I brought it up is a lot of communities are covered. The Sunshine Coast has coverage and the North Shore has coverage, but it doesn't look like Bowen Island specifically has coverage. And I don't know if anybody can contribute experience for that, but I just wanted to flag it. It's something somebody could follow up. Again, maybe it's Birch, maybe somebody else wants to volunteer. I think just to touch base with the North Shore and the Sunshine Coast, see if they've already covered Bowen, like maybe somebody on Bowen has made use of it. Obviously it's a confidential service, and it's something maybe we can just put out to the community, because there might be people that simply don't know about it. And it's just such a great program that, if you really are on that cusp 1 month to month and you just need a bit of extra funds to keep your housing, I think it's a great program. So I just wanted to bring out the awareness. that it exists. Yeah, Allison, please.
Yeah, I was reading that and noticed that, and I was a little confused with the BC rent. I've got to, because on the news last night, I think that is the fund that bought those apartment buildings in Vancouver. So the people weren't going to get evicted for redevelopment. So I'm not, so anyhow, there's a housing conference that UBCM is sponsoring that I'm registered for next week. And I think, Tim, did you get registered?
Yeah.
So that's one of the questions I think we need to we can follow up on there as to, and if it was, we don't have a lot of apartment blocks for rental housing. So maybe that's why we got left out, or maybe because we're in the Islands Trust, they're leaving Islands Trust out of these things. I didn't look at the Victoria areas to see if any of Salt Spring or any of those places were included.
Okay. Yeah. But anyways, just be on our radar. Wait, the next meeting report back. Please let us know what you find out at this conference. That's great.
Yeah. And if anybody's got any questions that come to their mind on what's going on with the provincial legislation besides Daniel's report and Daniel's questions, let us know so we can try and get answers.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And the next item is our work plan, which admittedly has sort of fallen by the wayside a little bit with everything being so busy lately. So we do still have time. So if everyone's okay till 11, I don't think there's anything else that needs to be discussed. And I think we have our next meeting date covered. Is that right, Steph?
Yes.
Yep. So we're all set for that. Okay. So we have about 15 minutes. Let's kind of jump into this and then we'll wrap up. I did bring up. Oh, go ahead. You bring it up on the screen. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I've got the 2023 with some scratchy outies for maybe we can review that and plug in 2024.
And I think that's what I kind of, while I was on my little break, my little hiatus from the meeting, I brought that up.
While you're in the penalty box.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, let's just have a look at this and see. I think it'll be just a matter of which ones we're going to carry forward, which ones can we say, yay, we got that done. And then we can, put some maybe priorities and times to it. So let's see what we can get through. So the cash in lieu policy and formula development. So I think that's still an interesting thing. We have the example of the Arbutus Bay Road that happened. That's complete, as far as I understand. That's all been done. And so it would be interesting maybe, because we did quite a bit of work on that and the calculations in it. It would be interesting to see if we could support staff in moving that into, say, a policy or a guideline, whatever might be appropriate. So Daniel, I don't know if you have ideas on that. Or
yes,
would it be a policy or guideline or
I think it would be adding to the affordable housing policy.
Okay. So that actually is an interesting thing. Maybe, I think we've talked about it before, maybe something we could take on is a review of the affordable housing policy. I think that's been on our radar for this year. So, and then this would be a part we would include. I think
you've already got it.
Oh yeah. Develop a housing policy versus affordable housing policy.
Yeah, which is different. A housing policy is different from the affordable housing policy. So yeah, let's please add in a review of the affordable housing policy and then, including the cash in lieu policy and formula, because we did all that work. So I don't want it to get lost. It would be nice if it could be put in there.
So we're gonna.
So given our previous discussion about the provincial legislation and having to pre-zone, then doesn't that sort of get rid of being able to ask for cash in lieu?
I wouldn't think so. Daniel, do you clear for that?
It would still apply, like if somebody wanted to go beyond OCP levels, it would still apply. Like even if we zoned everything to match the OCP took 20 years, there's still the potential that somebody would say, I want it to be 4 units instead of 1 unit, right? That would still, and it would still apply in those cases.
So but they've got this new ACC thing. So I guess we'll just have to see how all the legislation unfolds.
Yeah, like there might be stuff in the spring. I mean, on my radar, it's like I know one of the Housing Accelerator Fund initiatives, if we get the grant confirmed, one of the projects we have to undertake is essentially reviewing the affordable housing policy. I had put in, funnily enough, it was like, that we have policies that we don't hold public hearings for affordable housing projects, which is now largely redundant because of the provincial changes, but could still apply again if somebody's doing an OCP amendment. So I think having the affordable housing policy review as an item is good.
Okay,
Whether or
yeah,
not
and
it's
we-
like we do it in the spring and then have to do it again in 2025 with, different changes, I guess. So be it.
Sorry, so timing is spring and 2025, or that is?
No, just spring.
Spring
Yeah.
2024, okay. So, sorry, cash in lieu, can we get timing on that? Do we have a sense of that?
I think the cash in lieu would be a part of the review of affordable housing policy.
Spring?
So yeah, you can say spring. Yeah, spring 2024 with the, below.
And then it's
Affordable housing
review
policy.
affordable housing policy, and is there anything for the notes? I know you just said things. What are the bullets on that?
Oh,
Or,
I guess it would be in conjunction with new provincial legislation announcements, something like
thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
Does that sound right? Because I mean, that's essentially, I think,
Yeah.
what, other than just a review, from, hey, it's been however many years, we've had number of projects, let's review and see how it's working, tidied up, housekeeping, include the cash in lieu. And we have all these legislative things that have now come in. How do those actually
Yeah.
now fit in, right? What makes sense? And
Yeah.
like Councillor Moore said, like some might cancel while you're out. And so, yeah, I think that would be a sort of a definite part of it. Okay.
Thank you. And I've got to Scott for who, we've got you guys again. You might
Well,
have to-
and staff, like I for sure, I don't think that's something we're doing on our own, right? So, yeah. Okay, great. And then I think the next one, housing auxiliary application, we can cross that off. We got it done. Mostly that was Daniel's.
So I think, do we want to just put a complete in there just so we sort of,
yeah, it's always nice to say complete. Yay, got it done.
No, I don't
And
know.
then
rather
Yeah,
than,
that's okay.
when you're crossing them off because it's complete, it sort of disappears off the list and
Yeah,
doesn't end up showing
no
in our
bragging
minutes
rights.
that we finished it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe what we could do, Steph, when we're drafting it is we have the new plan, and then maybe at the bottom, kind of like, actions from last meeting or whatever, we could have a, completed 2023, something like that. Just, it's always nice to have a list and, see what we actually got done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what's the next item down? I feel like I keep scrolling on my screen thinking I
Yeah,
can
I know,
like
you
move-
usually do this. I don't know why I took it off you. I'm sorry. I had a lot of
Okay,
coffee
no,
this
that's fine.
morning.
I am happy for you to be doing the typing.
Really?
Okay, land
Okay.
use bylaw review.
Like Nigel, I'm happy to hand it back over to you. Okay, so
Yeah,
land use bylaw review, density bonusing.
So I wonder with this one, Daniel, because the OCP review is kind of in the works, as much as, we have lots of things we want to do, it sounds like OCP is first, affordable housing policy, those kinds of things.
Mhm.
And then once that's probably complete, then it's the opportunity to then take those changes and any feedback we have to then look at the land use bylaw. Is that timing sound
I
correct?
think that's probably true. It's like we will have to do, after adoption of OCP, we will have to do a zoning bylaw update.
Right. Okay.
Okay,
So I
so
think
that's
that's something
It's not
that we could
2024 then.
Well, I'm going to say end of 2024, like second half
Yeah.
of 2024. I don't think we have to wait because, again, Fritz and I and everybody else in the committee, I think we already have feedback, right, to give. And then in conjunction with the OCP happening, I think all of that. So we could be ready. Essentially, once the OCP is complete, we could already have something drafted to say, hey, here's kind of some of our suggestions, and then obviously update it with the OCP, final. And yeah, so I don't think we have to totally hold off until the OCP is
Okay.
complete. I think, but let's not start right away. Let's kind of wait till that process is on its way. Any
Robin.
Fritz? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Allison and then Fritz.
Yeah, I guess my concern is the way I'm reading all the provincial legislation and everything, and the OCP is going to have to be pretty prescriptive as to what's going to be where. And the land use bylaw is going to have to follow the OCP. So
Mhm.
seems to me we've got to get most of what we want to see discussed as part of the OCP review.
Alison, if you say prescriptive, you have to really watch that because the current OCP, the problem is that all kinds
It's
of
too
items
prescriptive.
are too prescriptive. So it has to facilitate. It actually, it cannot be a roadblock for.
Yeah.
So the objective has to be general enough that if something that later you don't say, oh shit, it's not meeting the rules, you know what I mean?
So I guess that's what I'm sort of getting at. I think we've got to make sure we feed in to the OCP review process.
Yeah, so we
Okay.
could easily say that, okay, if you trust in the OCP process being a perfect process, and in the end you're kind of happy with it, or you say no, as the Housing Advisory Committee, we want to make sure that they know what the concerns are that need to be addressed in the OCP. that's being proactive, right?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, I'm on board with that. Okay, so let's actually say, Steph, let's make that sort of mid-year. If we can aim to have something kind of mid-year, we'll keep track of the OCP process when that gets mapped out. And I like that idea that we would have some of our feedback we've already done. We could work on it a bit more and be able to feed that into the OCP process, so that as they are making decisions and changes, they're working in parallel with where we're all wanting to head. I think that's great. Yeah, good thinking.
So you're gonna work on it, is this right, in mid 2024? And then I can
Yeah,
make
let's be a
changes
bit
after the
vague.
new OCP can be sort of over here in this square, which is notes, saying you'll be ready for, is that
Well,
right?
it's more that we'd like to actually inform, be part of, in parallel and
Okay.
inform the OCP
Okay, so-
process.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
inform and work in parallel with the OCP
Yeah.
review.
that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
In a
Great.
way, every committee would do that.
Yes, but this could be, this is a specific item, especially
is
like Chris and
better.
I think are passionate and everybody wants to jump on it. This is one specific item, other than I'm sure the Housing Advisory Committee will be involved in the OCP at certain stages, but this is one thing where we can kind of make this a separate little project that I think will be really important.
Okay,
Which sort of fits with the set of boxes immediately below.
Yeah.
okay, so now we have,
Okay.
OCP review, okay.
Yeah. So I think that's, I would just say 2024, because I think, that's going to be, and we're waiting, right? They're going
Yeah.
to develop a work plan, the committee, we don't know exactly when that's going to be.
So we're gonna
So yeah, and I don't think we necessarily need to have subcommittee Fritz and Robin, but yeah, let's, because I think the next one above that, the land use one, kind of already has Fritz and I. And again, if anybody wants to jump on, speak up, because I think that'll be the whole committee will kind of contribute in whatever phases to the OCP.
That's whole committee. I think I had
Yeah.
the process of this, sorry to go up again, the land use bylaw, because
that's
Fritz
okay.
had all that material.
It is it definitely is in progress. We have
Okay,
material
sorry.
already in that. So I'd say in progress, and then I'd actually say the next one down is more not started yet.
OCP not started yet, okay.
Yeah. We'll follow the lead of the OCP committee and what they're doing.
It's almost like every committee can have a little OCP subcommittee.
Exactly.
Almost, you might find that. Yeah, it might.
I know
Yeah,
that's
who
for our
knows?
meeting, that's our debrief meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
sorry.
next one. No, that's okay. So cluster zoning. Okay, I think we can just mark that. I mean, basically complete where it is now, and then there'll be follow-up later. I mean, yeah, I don't know. What does everybody think? Maybe it's not complete. It's still in progress. Maybe that's a better way to put it, in progress, and it'll lead into it'll lead into, again, the OCP review. Yeah, I mean, I think the bulk of our kind of research and work is well done. Like, we were there, but now it's a matter of feeding it into the process at the right time, I think, and working with the OCP committee.
We did not incorporate these workforce housing survey results.
No, okay.
Isn't
let's
that belong in the next box down?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Let's maybe put that kind of as a note down in the next box, which maybe we could put for, late spring, early summer. It'd be nice we've been talking about it for a while, to connect with the CEDC and have a joint meeting with them and kind of talk about workforce housing. So I think that would be early summer, maybe.
They've had a hiatus since June, and then an exciting couple of meetings. They're quite keen, and they want to do a survey of worker housing. And so I'm just like, we did one. It exists. It's great. Can we do something with it? That's the gentle talk we're having there. So just to
so maybe, and maybe I can put that on my to-do list as the chair. I can maybe, via Steph, I can get in touch with the chair of that committee, and we can have a chat.
Ooh, okay.
Just to see where we're at. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then the next one, sorry, we're down to a few minutes here. Anything else on the list down the bottom? Review of
submissions.
Back burner.
Oh, I think that one we can take off, because that's I think that was like maybe the area 2 of lot 1, those submissions that came in. And so I think that's a moot point now, because Birch Tomo are working on that phase development plan. So that's underway.
So the status is Birch Tomo working on plan.
Yeah.
Rather than not started.
Okay, so, and I see Ron has to leave. I think we're still good for quorum, Steph. I mean, we're not making any, I don't think we're gonna make any formal recommendations right now.
So
Just got a minute left. Develop a housing policy. I'd like to still keep that on here. I don't know when that's gonna get started, but it'd be a nice one to see how, again, I don't think we're gonna do it, but how we can support it getting done. And maybe there's
Yeah.
the funding that's coming down the stream or whatever, but it'd be nice to keep that on the list.
Well, we did
proact-
we did the original policy as a committee.
Yeah, well, I think that, yeah, let's look into it. Let's keep it on the list.
Yeah.
Like a housing
Yeah.
policy, I think is more robust and it'll be informed by the housing needs assessment and all of that. So, but it is a big chunk. So yeah, let's see if that's something that's, there's the capacity for the committee to do or support in which way. So that's on our radar. Proactive rezoning, I would say that's like again, I hate to keep throwing everything back at the OCP, but it's sort of like, well,
Yeah,
if that's
is.
happening, there's no point us doing things, separately, right? So I would say that will be part of what will come into the OCP discussion.
Oh, and the Housing Accelerator Fund, or?
I think so, because there's definitely if we are successful in the Accelerator Fund grant, Daniel, jump in if I'm wrong, then we have targets we have to meet. So I think part of it's going to be that, a chunk might be proactive rezoning. So yeah, that'll come out once those are announced. Housing Reserve Fund. And I think, it's always good to have the Housing Reserve Fund on our radar, but I'm not sure how important this is for us to like actively explore additional funding sources, because I think it has some funds in it. We've now set a precedent for cash in lieu. There's, I think the MRDT is on council and mayor's radar, like that's kind of slowly moving forward. So I feel like that's, I'm happy to keep it on the list if people want, but I wouldn't say at this point it's a high priority. I think it's just maybe something to like say, keep on our radar, make sure we don't forget about it. So
Yeah. The MRDT is on the council strategic plan.
great. Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah.
That's another.
Okay, so we are,
thing.
we are right on time, everybody. So I'm just going to quickly open it up. Any final comments before we finish? And then thank you, everybody, for your time and effort. Thank you so much, Nigel. Oh, I'll get to you, Steph, in a sec. Thank you so much, Nigel, for taking over the reins. I hope that was, you got thrown in the deep end, your sort of second meeting. But Steph, final comments?
I would like to send this to you guys for you guys to do the final polish.
Yes, let's do a review by email.
For a vice chair.
Sure.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sure.
I'll spend hours on it and then it won't be what you want. So
Okay, we'll do that by email. Okay, thanks everybody.
you.
Thank you for your time
Thanks, guys.
and input, and we'll see you all next month. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.